Today is 1st of March 428. Market currently trade a reversal bounce. Managed to test the support at 3120, but currently trading off low, down about 6.7 point at 3136. Now notice even the downward move, the volume is also fairly high. Now usually with the very strong run up and equally fast collapse, market likely to be stuck in trading range with a couple of swings, so it's likely to be choppy. So it's important for us to manage position closely and perhaps take a smaller positions. Our immediate support is at 3120. We have another support which is the pivot low here at 3090. Immediate resistance in 3160. Let's take a look at the US markets. This is S&P 500 still charging ahead after breaking this resistance. If you take a look at the daily charts, you can see this shallow pullback, which is actually healthy. Managed to actually move up. You suddenly increase volume. If you take out this high, this general indication of strength. Likewise, we see that in the Nasdaq, but Nasdaq is touching this prior resistance. So this was its prior resistance, and it's actually hovering there. Now, if you actually pull back from here, that's perfectly normal. Eventually look for the assault above this intraday high here of 16212. But by and large, if you take a look at the NYSE Composite Index, will represent the 2000 big cap stocks. Actually, market strength is actually quite broad based, not confined to just tech sector. Ten-year Treasury yield start in trading range after this run up. So again, if we hover here, potentially it could actually break on the upside. Very much right now is actually data driven. If the inflation is not well controlled, then we may see a further delay in the interest rate cut, and that may cause the yield to actually move up. This will generally affect REITs and companies that is actually capital intensive. Brent crude trading sideways. This is generally a healthy sign after a run up. If it can continue to do so, it's an indication of strength and waiting for a catalyst to trigger to break on the upside. So it's right now it's just hovering at about $84. Now very much also affected by the geopolitical, particularly at the Middle East. So if the tension were to escalate further, then we may see a spike. It's just that on the fundamental fronts, the demand supply is still quite imbalanced. There is really no strong demand. It's just that we have issue with the supply. Let's take a look at some of the stock we'll be discussing. This is Yangtze. Over here we have very nice run up followed by this pullback. In particular, some of this pullback bar here has extremely low volume. It's a healthy sign and managed to take a breakout. Now if you take a close look, it's actually testing this resistance here, and they appear to be hesitant. At this point in time, it's actually closing at that price at about 179. Now if you pull back from here, that's perfectly normal, but we prefer a shallow pullback. That will be an indication of strength. Eventually look for a break on the upside. For clarity, you can take a look at the weekly charts. This is what happened. So notice this week you trade a huge range, so usually may pull back from here. For the Empire, stock has a very nice run up by experiencing fatigue, and this is quite evident from the closing up of the 1326 SMA. Now if you trade sideways, it's an indication of strength because this is a bit too fast too soon, and if it actually rests, it's actually a good sign, and eventually you'd like to see take out this high here of 147. Franken managed to actually follow through after this big dipper breakout, and you notice actually currently is trading at its close. So again, if you have missed the earliest breakout, look for pullback here and look for a new setup. This is unlike the others semicon stock. This is UMS. Just released the result and there was this violent move. Prior to that, in fact, there was attempts to actually moved up, and of course we have resistance here. We have this resistance here, and actually pull back. And subsequently, with the release of the result, it actually moved downwards. Very sharp retracement. So usually when the chart is damaged, it probably takes some time to repair. AEM, after the release of result, the stock actually moved downwards very aggressively with a bearish gap. Huge gap. Alright, so on a very short term basis, a bit overextended on the downside. If you take a look at the bigger pictures, you can see this is a huge rounding patterns, and you managed to break the support. And prior to that, there was a bit of reactions. So we can look for a throwback here and look for a new setup to short the stocks. Ventures. Not particularly strong. You can see that the 1326 is actually not diverging. Here we have a very strong bar here on high volume, followed by pullback. You prefer the volume has been much lower, and the pullback has been much shallower. But whatever the case, this is perhaps one of the few tech stocks that is actually holding well. And this is a pretty obvious here, a resistance here, which happened to be tested, this gap here. Mentioned before that this was previously a counter trend trade that we take, and if you notice, actually after that there was a sideways move, managed to break up. So if the 200 days eventually turn up, it's generally better. We like to actually trade high probability trade rather than a hit and run trades, particularly those who are more conservative. One of the tech stocks that actually move up after the release of result, this is a stack, huge gap. Okay, and we're turning this resistance. We like to look for a pullback. If you take a look, it's actually pretty fast the way it moves. After the gap, it makes a successive high, and usually first attempt may not break. Look for pullback here. We like to look for setup. China Aviation Oil, unfortunately, after the release of results, there's a bit of a struggle. If you notice over here, the volume is extremely high, and today trade a reversal bar. We just have to observe what happens. I would prefer if the stock can continue to hover sideways just below the resistance, otherwise the bet is off. Mentioned before, Comfort Delgro. This stock is just resilient, but it's better to look at the weekly charts in view of its sluggishness. Managed to actually find a bottoms here and bounce off 1326 proper order, approaching this resistance. Again, if you trade sideways, look for eventually break on the upside. We have an unusual move from Wing Tai. This is a stock that we rarely discuss. Now there are rumors of the stock being taken private. So we notice over here, very strong run up. Prior to that, if you notice, stock has been trending down. And over here managed to cross over the 1326 SMA. Very nice, very huge gap here, and followed by this pullback. Usually this run itself will need some time to digest and coincide with this resistance. We like to look for pullback here, and at this point in time we have a contraction setup. Bar high is 148.